the weather and how does it affect us? What is weather? How many types of weather can you think of? Cloudy, thunderstorms, sunny, partly cloudy, rainy. What other types can you think of? Well, what is weather? Most of our weather occurs in the lowest layer of the Earth's atmosphere, which is called the troposphere. Weather and climate. You've probably heard both words. Some people mix them up. They're linked, but they're not exactly the same thing. So what is the difference? Do you think you can remember? Well, let's take a look. Weather. Weather is the conditions of the atmosphere, such as temperature and the presence of rain and clouds. Weather changes daily. So today it could be hot and sunny, and tomorrow it could be freezing cold. The weather can change from day to day. So if I say to you, what is the weather going to be like? You would ask, well, do you mean today or tomorrow? And then you could give an answer. Whereas climate is slightly different. Climate is the average weather conditions of a particular location or place over a long period of time. The UK, or the United Kingdom, has a temperate climate, which means it has warm summers, mild winters, and some rainfall all year. Whereas Johannesburg, for example, has very hot summers, mild winters, and only summer rainfall, and winter it's dry. So the climate is slightly different to the weather because climate looks over a long period of time and not just day to day like the weather. What's a meteorologist? It's somebody that studies the weather. Right, we're going to skip over this slide and go on to the next one. Right, we're going to ask ourselves, what is the difference in each statement? So, the Sahara Desert is hot and dry all year. When you see the words all year, your brain should automatically know that we're talking about climate and not weather. Because remember, weather is something that changes daily. So when you see the word all year, you know that we're talking about climate. Let's see if you can do the next one. Number 2, today has been really hot and sunny. Are they talking about climate or are they talking about weather? Let's see the answer. Weather. It's weather because we're talking on a day-to-day basis. We're talking about specifically today. Number 3, last Wednesday, so a very specific day, was really windy in Port Elizabeth. You could almost blow over. No wonder it's called the Windy City. Right, are they talking about climate or are they talking about weather? Is it a one-day event or is it a long-term pattern? You've guessed it right. It is weather. Right, number 4. Durban is always hot in the summer. Are they talking about long-term patterns or one-day pattern? You've guessed it, it's climate because they're talking about a pattern that happens year after year after year after year. Right, what about Cape Town has cold and wet winters. It rains a lot and is green and beautiful all the way through winter. It makes it very difficult to dry washing or get warm because everything is damp. Though not as cold as London, which is the picture below, it can get dark and gloomy in the winter months. Right, are we talking about a pattern of weather over time or are we talking about one day at a time? Correct, it's long term, so we're talking about climate. Johannesburg, number 6, has the most powerful thunderstorms in summer. Most afternoons you can bank on having to stay indoors because of the lightning or having to run very fast to your car to avoid getting drenched. This is what Joburgers are used to dealing with most days, aren't we? Right, so we're talking about powerful thunderstorms every summer Is that daily weather or is that long-term climate? You've guessed it, climate. Right, number 7. The average daytime temperature in the Kruger Park is 28 degrees. Average daytime temperature. So is that talking about day or long-term? It is talking about long-term because we use the word average, which means over a long period of time we can see it goes up a little bit, then down a little bit, and you measure it over a long period of time. Finally, let's use this sentence. The heavy rain last week caused a flood. Now, is that something that's going to happen every week over many years? No, it's therefore, we're talking about weather. This morning, we didn't have to go to school because it snowed. Is that talking about long term or is it talking about a specific day? Correct, a specific day. So we are talking about weather. What we want to do is think about how weather affects us. Can you think of an example of how the weather has affected you in some ways? The picture on the left is probably somewhere in the northern hemisphere where it snowed overnight, and those cars would definitely not be able to go driving in the morning. They're completely covered in snow, so it would affect getting to work, it would affect getting to school. You probably couldn't even walk in that snow, it's too thick. Whereas on the right-hand side, that house has been demolished probably by a tornado, which is a very strong wind, and of course that would deeply affect your life. Weather does affect our life. It comes in and it comes out. In what way has weather affected you? Take a think for a moment. All right, we're going to take a look at some point at how the weather affects us in terms of health, farming, transport, shopping, tourism, and energy. We're going to have a think about what the positive impacts are from the weather and what the negative impacts are. We'll come back to this. Finally, take a look at these pictures which show the impact of weather on our lives. At the top, there's the farming, where weather has come in and really crushed some of the plants. Top right shows hail damage from the car. Bottom left shows flood damage to crops. And on the right, we assume that this poor lady has been trying to get a flight out and all of the flights have been cancelled because the weather has been so bad. That's a reality for many people who live in the northern hemisphere where snowstorms are a very big reality. So weather does affect us. I want you to think about in ways that it might have affected you before.